very close. This spot is going to be interesting. Wow.
He's got Michael Brown on the field, man.
Wow. Maybe they're going to try to get him to jump. We'll see. Or they're going to actually snap this.
Go get under center and run a sneak and win this football game.
Wow. Are they really going to snap this?
Yep.
Wow. And he got the first down.
I'm telling you. And he almost dropped it, and that was second effort.
At home to Tulane.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, this is a big blow. Maybe they turn it around. Maybe they use it for fuel heading to Norman where they've had success. But hats off to Willie Fritz and his entire staff. And again, coming last year 2-10, going through Hurricane Ida, all the adversity, and now
they've already exceeded their win total from last year. They're now 3-0 for the first time since 1998.
What's up, sports fans? This is Talk a Lotta, where we talk a lot of sports. And today, we are talking a lot of Tulane football. I'm pumped. I'm throwing this helmet on. Maddy Hudak joins the show. I can't fit it.
I was going to say the headphones seem to be an issue.
All right, folks. This is Talk a Lotta, where we talk a lot of sports. Welcome to the show, Maddy Hudak, Tulane sports reporter. She does it all. First off, just tell us a little bit about you. You've had some job changes. You do a bunch of different things, and you've been with Tulane, heart and soul of this team, for a while now. You've been through the tough times. You've been through a tough season last year, a 2-10 season, as we just heard from that video, and we've already exceeded that number, starting off 3-0. First off, just a little bit about you, and then we'll get into some plays, some recaps, and obviously previewing the big game tomorrow against Southern Miss.
Yeah, so I am Tulane sideline reporter. This is my second season. I do cover the Saints for USA Today, Saints Wire, and I did most recently start a job with Next Gen Prospects. They partner with the Senior Bowl to build kind of their big board and scout players, and they're expanding into a national scouting service, looking at people that come from the Scouting Academy, which is the scouting course I've been taking. So I'll be their Southeast area scout, looking at high school prospects in a lot of states at that point, and then trying to kind of work with some schools on using the program as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So Maddy does it all. A really cool last name, Hudak. Sounds like Hudak. And the Green Wave are 3-0. What does that mean to you to see that last play, that probably one of the gutsiest calls by any coach in college football through the start of this football season, to go 3-0 and to do it in that form, in that fashion, to go for it on 4th and 1, to really seal the deal? What does that mean to you, and how has it been around campus?
Well, I went to Tulane. I graduated in 2016. It was the first year that Coach Fritz actually came on, and football just wasn't a thing when I went to that school. There was no competitive nature whatsoever. There wasn't any type of student section involvement. They didn't even have Yulman Stadium until my junior year, which I was abroad. So I only had one season at Yulman, and I've never seen a Tulane team like this. And you brought it up at the beginning, but going through last year, I was down in Birmingham with these guys, and it was bleak. They had really little to no notice. They had one change of clothes, I think, because we were just really, that storm came on so quickly, and they weren't really able to come back. They didn't have their normal amenities. There were guys that were drying their uniforms off in a ballroom with a hairdryer. They didn't have a locker room. They didn't have their proper weight room equipment. So you go into Ole Miss in week 3 and you aren't properly conditioned. You're at this place displaced for 3 weeks in a hotel that was under renovation. And then, the season just really went downhill from there. And last weekend, I didn't go to the Oklahoma game, and I was really bitter about it because I was in Florida, evacuated. And I felt like that was the big game of what would be my sideline career, and I missed it. Yeah. And so to go into this weekend, and their first 2 opponents were kind of softballs. One's one of the worst FBF teams, the one's an FCS team. But I've been saying it all offseason. I've been there since spring camp. Like, this team is just completely different from last year. And, I'll get to a coach's guts in that call, but he also had the guts to clean house after last season in terms of basically the entire coaching staff. I think the only guys that remain are Slade Nagel, who is our tight ends coach, and now they believe assistant head coach, Chris Hampton as our defensive coordinator, and a couple of position guys on defense. But everything from the strength and conditioning coach, which I think has also been low-key one of the biggest difference makers. But a lot of coaches don't have the cojones, for lack of a better term, to really just assess something and say, I have to start over.
It's okay.
Sure. From square one. And then at the same time, sometimes that doesn't work. And so for it to continue to keep working going into Kansas State, ESPN referred to them as, the angry wave. That's what the defense was all game. But we were the tune-up for Kansas State, if you will.
Oh, wow. Very much don't use that word anymore, ESPN.
Yeah, really. And I had the only unfortunate thing about my sideline role hosting in the post game is I have to kind of run up there with 6 minutes left. So I was up in the press box. I had Corey Glora, play caller, still in my ear, and I hear him start saying, "Oh my God, wait, Michael Pratt's going back out on the field." And we're all, Steve, who's the color analyst, he's a Hall of Famer at Tulane. Is his 40th year in the booth, and we're both alumni. And everyone in that moment was just on pins and needles. I was like climbing a railing. Like, we just could not believe that was happening. The guts by Willie Fritz to say, we're not going to not lose this game. We're going to win the game. And he actually told us that he was going to go for 4th down on that drive. And that was the plan. He did tell us, though, that it really had to do with the fact that it was 6 inches and that if it was 4th and 2, they're not sure if they would have gone for it. But to me, that's Willie Fritz in a nutshell. And he's really one of the only coaches that I think has the guts to just say, we're going to win this game right now. Like, yes, the defense had been doing really well, but that field position was stressful if they didn't convert that. But things can happen on punts. And I think he was correct to kind of bet on a play they've practiced time and time again. Yes, Michael Pratt fumbled the snap initially, but didn't get frazzled. He picked it up immediately. Tajay Spears comes from behind and just launches him 2 yards over what they needed to get. And the reaction in the press box, we sit next to the coaches, they're banging on the windows, screaming at the top of their lungs. It was a feeling I had never felt. And really, I never had cared that much about college football because Tulane was just so not a thing when I went there. And if it's not your school and there's not a hometown team, but I finally understood the magic in college football this weekend.
It's fantastic. I mean, what a win and what a game to preview between you and me here today. And I'm going to quiz you on the starters. I made Maddy show me before the show that she doesn't have any cheat sheets. So we're going to see if you can name all 22 starters. But before that, Maddy, let's break down a couple plays, specifically linebacker Nick Anderson, who was just named the American Athletic Conference Defensive Player of the Week for his performance this past Saturday. Let me show this play, and then let's hear your insight.
Martinez in the gun. Fullback to his left. Vaughn behind him. Single receivers either side. Snap. Option. Keeps it himself, and he should have dished it. And Nick Anderson is there again. Back to the 48-yard line. Another turnover on downs for this Wave defense. Their 4th of the day.
I mean, 4 fourth down stops really says it all. But I think Nick Anderson was involved in 2 of them. He's the heart of this team, really, in general. But he was just getting into that backfield. They have been running a lot of 3 linebacker sets, and that was one of those cases where they bring in Jesus Machado and Dorian Williams. But Nick Anderson he's kind of that edge rusher guy that you see make that transition to the NFL and their ability to get to the quarterback. But the way he just sees lanes, his ability to really have that quickness off the line of scrimmage. And he is the definition of mental toughness to me as well. And just the reads he was making, they completely stifled the run game. And he read that play brilliantly. He didn't get caught up in a block. And when this team hits that first tackle, they wrap it up, and that player's going down on the first hit. And that was a perfect example of his wrap-up technique.
Here on Talk A Lotta, joined by Maddy Hudak. Talk A Lotta presented by Boot Crew Media and DraftKings Sportsbook. Bet $5, get $200 in free play. Again, DraftKings Sportsbook, download the app, bet $5, get $200 in free play for all new customers. Obviously, college football and NFL. We're looking ahead to this weekend with a lot of great betting opportunities on DraftKings. And we're going to transition to our Bear Law LLC tough question of the day. in the Bear Law LLC tough question for Maddy Hudak is, ma'am, can you name all 22 starters on the Tulane football team?
I'm going to try my best. So
can you do it in less than a minute?
Maybe left tackle Joey Claybook, Prince Pine, Sincere Haynesworth, Kanan Ray, Rashad Green, Michael Pratt, Tajay Spears. I think it's Lawrence Keys now, Shea Wyatt, Deuce Watts, potentially Jaquan Jackson on the defensive line. It would be, I believe, that's the only one because it's different every single game. But Eric Hicks, Angelo Anderson, probably Patrick Jenkins, Cameron Hamilton, Jarius Hodges, Nick Anderson, Dorian Williams, Macon Clark, Jaden Kennedy, Lemmy Young, Larry Brooks, Lance Robinson.
I counted 12. I guess that was 11 on the defense.
Did I Jesus Machado? Sometimes it depends on the set they're using.
There you go. All right. I love it. That was incredible.
Glover as punter, Kristen Esnard kicker, Ethan Hudak as the long snapper. Shout out to my pseudo brother.
Oh, is he?
We don't know if we're related. It is up in the air.
Okay. All right. It's kind of like me and Jordy Collado. Awesome.
Yeah.
So, Maddy, you also just learned that Ta Colada is a pun. Can you share what was going through your head when you learned that?
I was listening to one of your videos where you just kept saying it, Ta Colada, Ta Colada. I'm like, my brain goes, geez, like I've read your name on Twitter so many times. I've looked at it and I just assumed it was, I'm a talk person. So here we are.
If you look at
sometimes things click a little slowly.
If you look at the line right below the logo, it says we talk a lot of sports.
Well, see, that would require me paying attention to everything at once. And sometimes that's not.
All good. I thought it was a clever name. And then when you told me you just
it is.
I was like, maybe
it's so clever. It took me a while to get it.
Okay. Love that. All right. So we know the starters. We know how Tulane won last game. And we're going to get into this big game Saturday. And I want to give you the opportunity I'm going to take myself off the screen. I'm going to put you front and center. And I want to close out with an opportunity for you to speak to the Tulane fan base, the New Orleans community on gathering in and packing in. You can obviously walk in. You can still buy tickets. So we're going to close out with that, Maddy. But first, one more big play that I'd like you to break down from last game, and then we'll talk a little Southern Miss and close out, all right? Here we go.
Receivers, they'll have single receivers either side. Giddens in the backfield. Now a tight end comes in as a fullback. Snap. Handoff, Giddens, right side, not going to get there again. Corey Platt, Bailey Despaney, and for the third time today, this Tulane defense holds on fourth down. And listen to the boos ringing down here in Manhattan.
Bailey Despaney came down from, back at safety. And I want to point out, he's not a starter. There were second and third string guys that were making stops in that game because a lot of guys went out with cramping. But he again, this is a run stopping secondary. It is so fun to watch, but he read that like a book, and just his burst and quickness and just ability, again, all of their situational awareness to know where the down marker was on those fourth downs. It was all such fourth and short. And again, his wrap-up tackling was immaculate on that play. But to come in, not really be starting, and make a fourth down stop like that, and Corey Platt as well. He's also one of those guys that is on the depth chart, and they knew where they had to make those stops every single time. They executed to perfection. They didn't wait. They didn't kind of think, oh, well, we have linebackers up there, we'll just let them take it. He read that, he went down, and that was really, I think, where the momentum firmly stayed in Tulane's corner. It was with Despaney's third fourth down stop of their four total.
Yeah, I mean, when you have those fourth down stops, and especially late in the game, and again, the gutsy call by Willie Fritz to go for it on fourth down and really take control of the game, and not only be in the driver's seat, but drive the car to a victory, literally.
First Power 5 opponent win for him too. So what a way to do it.
So, Maddy, the battle for the bell is renewed this Saturday when Tulane hosts Southern Miss at 6 p.m. at Yulman Stadium. The Bell Trophy will appear in uptown New Orleans Saturday evening, and Tulane has no plan to let it depart for Hattiesburg. The rivalry is historic. two schools in close proximity. A fun fact of that game, Tulane has 12 players from Mississippi on its roster. Southern Miss has 6 players from Louisiana on its roster. You know about the history since Fritz has joined the Green Wave 7 years ago. Obviously their ties, not just in proximity, but with Fritz, being able to kind of win a couple games against Southern Miss. At the end of the day, Southern Miss leads this series 23. They're 23-9 overall series. What does this game mean for Tulane to not only get a win, to go 4-0, but to particularly beat the Southern Miss Golden Eagles?
There's a lot going on here. Will Hall was the offensive coordinator when Michael Pratt came off the bench in 2020. And guess who they were playing? Southern Miss. When they went undefeated in 1998, who did they face in week 4 in the Dome? Southern Miss. Who were they facing this weekend? Southern Miss. Tulane's beat them in the last 2 games. And I mean, really, it's the undefeated season on the line. But I think that a lot of time you have those kind of upsets against guys like Kansas State, and people think, oh, Tulane just played their heart out, but are they going to have that hangover win? And was that just kind of all of their effort in one fell swoop? I'm inclined not to think so. I think that there's, not a lot to prove here, but I think Michael Pratt, that's the guy who started his development, and he's really going to want to kind of show that off. I think it's going to be a cat and mouse game between him and Fritz. But yeah, the 33rd battle of the bell, Tulane is losing the series. They've held the last 2. And I just think that this win means so much for this program, and the way that they performed in an away game. I think if they're able to kind of take this one at home, then you're looking at that Houston game and you're thinking conference championship should be the goal set at this point for this season. And I think that they're poised to really take advantage of that if they're able to pull this off this weekend.
What needs to happen to get this victory?
Pack Yulman is what needs to happen, guys. I mean, look at how Tulane performed in an away crowd with 55,000 fans. It was loud there. I had trouble hearing the broadcast in my ear, and Tulane really just thrived on that. But again, I went to the school for 4 years. I've never seen anything like it. And they almost kind of remind me of the Pelicans last year, where no one really followed them before. And you were a fool if you didn't start paying attention to them to the latter half of that season. And I think you'd be a fool to kind of pass Tulane by at this point. If you're local, what else do you have to do on Saturday other than really come see these guys who went through so much last season, who had to deal with that hurricane? A lot of people lost all of their belongings. They lost their housing. They had family that lived here. They went through a lot last year, and the way that they have scratched and clawed and really gotten to where they are now, they deserve to have a full stadium packed. What has been missing? People have said, well, if Tulane can win some games, then fans will show up. Well, guess what? They're undefeated. Southern Miss travels really well. And if Tulane fans aren't outnumbering the Southern Miss people in the stands, then you guys have done these guys a disservice. This is a Tulane team to root for. I think they're in the midst of a storybook season. And the bandwagon, it's always best to jump on while it's starting its route. So come show up. It's going to be a fun game under the lights. And again, this is a magical team, in my opinion, and they really deserve those stadium seats packed, which are cheap, 2 for $1 right now. And as Willie Fritz continues to say, it's cheap beer and almost every seat is great. So don't know which more you could ask for. Come watch Tulane beat Southern Miss.
Let's go!
Look who it is. I forgot you as one of the starters before.
That thing was hard to put on, Maddy. I'm so pumped. That got me going. That really did. That was like Bert Kreischer's speech on Sunday Conversations with Caleb Presley, where he talked about how you can literally have a cocktail for any moment and how like bottomless mimosas. And it was like the most inspiring video about how you can enjoy alcohol at any time. And so really a terrible video for people struggling with alcoholism. But in your case, that was an awe-inspiring way to really, at the end of the day, to get on a more serious level, talk about the restoration, the recovery, the comeback nature of New Orleans and Tulane football after Hurricane Ida last season. I think a lot of people forget, like, not only were the Saints dealing with that, not only were all these local schools dealing with this, but like the Tulane football team was dealing with this. And like Loyola and UNO, obviously, and their athletic programs had to as well. But it wasn't the same because Loyola and UNO don't have football teams. Like they weren't in the heart of their biggest season, one of their biggest money makers, for the university. And so let's make some money for New Orleans and for Tulane and show up and show out Saturday at 6 p.m. in Yulman Stadium. Maddy, any kind of final thoughts on this team? Obviously, the call to action for fans is there and has been stated on multiple different accounts and in multiple different ways. And I'll be sure to reshare, your call to action that you said just now. But any kind of final thoughts and maybe some perks that people can look forward to from being in the game Saturday?
Well, I mean, listen, they have really just been lights out in all three phases of the game. The offense has been complimentary, and they've shown three different looks every single game so far. So they've been a nightmare to plan for, I'm sure, if you're an opposing coordinator. This defense, if you like defense, then I don't know what you're doing if you're not paying attention to Tulane, because I am, and I that is just everything to me. The special teams unit has been crushing it. Casey Glover, who never punted in his life, is now really following in the footsteps of Ryan Wright, who punts for the Vikings now on Sundays. And Christian Esnard, again, freshman kicker, never kicked in a game setting. He's made them all so far. So there's so much about this team to root for. There's so many likable guys that are just leaders and really pulled them through kind of those dark times last year. Like Nick Anderson is one of the best people I have ever met. Michael Pratt is truly a leader. And to have that on both sides of the ball, you could see the love with these guys. And you could see how much it means to Coach Fritz and how much it all just in general, this all kind of means for them all. And yeah, you're right. There's this New Orleans theme of kind of restoration after things go horribly awry on different scales. But I really think this is Tulane's redemption season. And I think that you're going to see a different offense every week. So I wish I could kind of give some predictions, but I think the unpredictability of Jim Svoboda's play calling so far really makes it an intriguing thing to kind of look forward to.
Maddy Hudak, sideline reporter for the Tulane Green Wave football team. Again, Saturday, 6 p.m. in Yulman Stadium against Southern Miss. Awesome game, and it's no longer a perfect weekend just when LSU football and the Saints win. It now requires Tulane football to win. So let's get all three this weekend. Saints at Carolina, LSU hosting New Mexico in Baton Rouge, and Tulane hosting Southern Miss in Yulman Stadium. Also, I'll be covering Jesuit John Curtis tonight at Tad Gormley. So stay tuned on Talkalata and all the Boot Crew Media platforms for some high school coverage. Got a big announcement coming y'all's way on Twitter as well. And be sure to keep up with Maddy on Twitter at Maddy Hudak _94 or just 94. Maddy Hudak _94 on Twitter. And all her channels. Maddy, thanks so much for joining us. And I just want to say, Hudak, and keep talking a lot of sports.
Thank you. And thank you for bringing me on to talk Tulane. Like they really deserve it. And I honestly appreciate everyone that's helped kind of do that this week.
Maddy Hudak is brought to you.
Talk a lot about this win on next week.
Oh yeah, baby. Bring the puns out, Maddy. I love it.
I get with the program.
I love it. Maddy Hudak is brought to you by Helm Paint and Decorating, the official paint and decorating center of Talkalata. Again, Helm Paint and Decorating. Go to helmpaint.com. That's HELM paint.com, or call 504-861-8179. Y'all, I don't even have any interior designers on my phone. Why? Because I just call Helm Paint. It's 504-861-8179. And I don't need to call anybody to talk Tulane football besides Maddy Hudak. Thanks again, Maddy, and we'll see you Saturday in Yulman Stadium.
Thank you, and roll wave.
Yes, indeed. This is Talk a Lot, where we talk a lot of sports. She's Maddy, I'm Jack, and we are signing out. Peace and love.